Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping into something really raw and personal, a first-person account of a spiritual crisis. It's a story about hitting rock bottom and finding a pretty unexpected way out, and it's all laid out in just one powerful chapter from a historical text.
And believe it or not, this single page, this is our entire source. That's it. In just a few paragraphs, the narrator takes us from this incredible spiritual high, drags us through a whole year of agonizing doubt, and then reveals this surprising breakthrough that totally changes their perspective.
All right, so here's how we're going to trace this journey. We're going to follow the narrator through 5 really distinct stages, starting with a moment of incredible connection, then diving into a deep crisis of faith, and finally, seeing how they reached a completely new understanding of their spiritual life. So let's start at the very beginning, right? We're talking about the absolute peak of the narrator's spiritual experience. This is a moment they describe as just pure divine intimacy. I mean, listen to this language. It's so physical, so intimate. The narrator talks about taking the infant Jesus from the crib, and not just to hold him, but to place him in their breast and drink a libation of divine sweetness. Wow. This isn't some abstract idea. This is a feeling of overwhelming, almost sensory joy. Okay, so hold on to that feeling, because fast forward 1 year and poof, it is completely gone. That initial sweetness has just curdled into the source of deep, gnawing anxiety. And the text makes a real point of telling us this happens on the exact same day, a year later. That incredible, profound experience has just vanished, and it's been replaced by this sense of failure, this feeling that they just don't have the devotion that once came so easily. And this right here, this really shows you the heart of the problem. On the left, you've got the memory of that divine sweetness, right? An overflowing heart. And on the right, you have the painful reality of the present, a heart that feels constricted, like it's wrapped in thorns, feeling like it completely failed. This sharp contrast is what kicks off the whole crisis. And this question, this is what's eating them alive. They're just wrestling with it. Is this loss of feeling a punishment from a higher power, an act of justice? Or is it just a consequence of their own personal failure, their negligence? You know, they're trapped between divine judgment and self-blame. So, faced with this agonizing doubt, what do you do? Well, our narrator doesn't just sit there and wallow in it. Instead, they make a conscious, very deliberate choice to change their spiritual practice in a really specific way. Now look at this shift. They move from praying for their immediate circle, those related to me, to praying for souls in purgatory and for anyone, anywhere who is suffering. I mean, think about that. It's this radical, selfless expansion of focus, from the people they know to the completely unknown. And this is key. It wasn't some random thought. The text makes it clear they formed the resolution. This was an intentional choice, a pivot away from their own pain to direct their spiritual energy entirely outward. And this one seemingly simple change in focus, well, that's what leads to the breakthrough. But maybe not the one you're expecting. It doesn't bring back that old feeling, but it brings something else entirely, a really profound and clarifying insight. And notice how they describe the answer. There's no booming voice from the heavens, no dramatic vision. It's just a quiet, internal sense of affirmation, it seemed to me, that this new selfless approach was the right path. This subtle feeling was the answer to their year-long crisis. So the big revelation wasn't, oh, I feel good again. No, not at all. It was actually a form of self-correction. The purpose, as they saw it, was to understand their own flaws more clearly, their unworthiness, and to become less negligent. The whole goal shifted from seeking joy to seeking humility. All right, so this brings us to the final stage of the journey, and it doesn't end with some triumphant return to spiritual bliss. It ends with a humble confession and a plea for self-improvement, all born from this new clarity. So here it is. The narrator completely owns their shortcomings. They confess their negligence. They ask for forgiveness, not based on their own merit, but through the sacrifice of another. It's a direct plea for the strength to actively change and to atone for their failures. And really, that's the whole ballgame. That's the ultimate takeaway for the narrator. The journey has totally transformed their spiritual goal. It's no longer about recapturing a feeling of sweetness, but about the active, ongoing work of amendment and atonement, of just being better. So when you step back and look at this whole account, from that blissful connection, through the agonizing doubt, to this new humble clarity, it all hinges on that one single decisive shift away from the self. And it leaves us with a really fascinating question to think about. When does looking away from our own problems actually provide the clearest answer to them?